In the communities and ecosystem, we will be continuing about the global patterns of climate. So, as we have discussed earlier, that the simplified and idealized picture that we have seen earlier is complicated by the Coriolis effect, and that was, named against the scientist, the French mathematician Gaspard Coriolis, who analyzed it, and it is a consequence of west-east rotation of the Earth. So, the spinning force tends to deflect any free moving object to the right of its course in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. So, if anything is moving in a direction, just like the spinning force, it tends, if anything, if wind is coming from the north side, which in our case we are taking the north as up. So, if wind is coming from the north side, it will be deflected towards the right side, and if wind is coming from the south side, it will be deflected towards the left. So, in both cases, the wind will be moving from east to the west. So, in this way, you will see that the masses of the movement of the air masses will take place from the east to the west. So, as a result, the wind moving towards the equator in both hemispheres, the wind is moving from the poles towards the equator, and when it reaches to the equator, it moves towards from east to the west. So, as a result, the wind moving towards the equator in both hemispheres are deflected and consequently blow from east to the west. So, the trade winds found in both northern and southern hemisphere meet in the region of the equator, and this is known as the Intertropical Convergence zone. So, at the winds which are coming from the north to the south towards the equator, or from the south towards the north towards the equator, they combine at the ITCZ zone, and that is called Intertropical Convergence zone. So, in the northern hemisphere summer, the strong southerly winds are generated in the Indian Ocean, carrying the warm, moist air into India and East Africa. So, we are familiar in Pakistan with those winds. These winds bring the monsoon rains to these regions. So, we will be seeing these winds here. If you see the general patterns of areas of high and low pressure across the Earth's surface and the consequent patterns of movement of air masses in January. So, in January, what happens that there is less sun on the southern parts of the Pakistan and India, or in the East Africa, which is Indian Ocean. So, what will happen that the airs move towards from north towards the south, and you can see that in here as well. And you can see the general patterns of the movement of the air in January. But in the next diagram, you can see the general pattern of area of high and lower pressure across the Earth's surface, and the consequent patterns of the movement of air masses in July. So, in July, you can see that the East Africa, Madagascar, and India, all of these are getting the air which are containing high amount of water vapors, and these are going onto the plains, and they will be bringing the heavy rains in August and September. In these are called monsoon rain, and you can see the other generalized patterns of how the winds move during the July on the whole globe here. And then there are the global patterns of oceans and land masses, and these are also modifying the climatic patterns further, right? So, there is altitude, there is latitude, and then there is the global patterns of ocean and land masses. So, these are the things which are further modifying the climate. The global circulation of pattern of water within the ocean are also of great importance in determining the world climate patterns. So, there is the water movement as well inside the ocean, and you can see in here. So, here you can see the oceanic conveyor belt. carrying the warm, low salinity surface water northward into the North Atlantic, and deep, higher salinity cold water from west to the east into the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. From here, water receives a renewal of its heat content and rises to the surface and return westward into the Atlantic. So this is sort of a conveyor belt which takes the water currents from one region to another region, and that will take this conveyor belt will help in the migration of certain species of organisms as well.